Welcome to the channel. Today we're gonna see a movie that's called Lucy. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe. The movie starts, this guy's talking to Lucy, his boyfriend. He's asking her for a favor, and this favor is to have the suitcase delivered. And Lucy remember the good time they had before, and Lucy telling her that that's fine, but I have so many things to do. But the boyfriend insisted, holding her back. She was asking him how much he get paid to deliver. He said $1,000 and they can have a share of 500 each. Here, put the handcuffs, but she didn't want to. Now her hands is with the handcuffs with the suitcase, so she has no choice than to go inside and deliver the suitcase. She went to the receptionist and asking for Mr. Jane, and the receptionist asked, who sent you? He say Richard. That was his boyfriend that they met the night before in the club. And the reception is asking, ask her, where's Richard? He says, at the door over there. You send me? And the receptionist said, you have to wait here. Mr. Jane is coming down, so you have to wait here. The bodyguards of Miss Jane came down and killed his boyfriend Richard and took her to the elevator upstairs, dragging her on the floor to meet Mr. Jane. And now she realized that she was in trouble. She was panicking. Anxiety came up and she sat down. They gave her something to wipe the vomit. Is it Mr. Jane just cleaning his hands with the water? And she asked if he speaks English. She was saying that, which are always my boyfriend that I met last night in the club and asked me to deliver this suitcase, and I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. Mr. Jane sit down and dialed a number on the phone. She was telling him that tell him I don't know anything, and Mr. Jane give the guy on the phone some instructions because he was speaking the same language she couldn't understand. The man on the phone send message. Jane said you have to open the suitcase using the number that is written down on the paper. Mr. Jane insisted that she has opened the suitcase using the number, and she was very impatient. She was dialing the 140 to open the suitcase. This suitcase was opened and there was nothing to be afraid of. Mr. Jane came back to tell her that she has to walk for him. Family was open. There was blue bags, full blue bags on the suitcase, and Mr. Jim took one of them and he had a man down to try it. When did Metroid? Yeah, I was laughing so hard and making funny noises, and he looks funny too, and they all were laughing at it at the same time. Mr. Jane shoot the guy and then he asked the men to bring it out. Lucy woke up in the hotel and she realized that she was bleeding on her stomach, confused, realizing that there was drugs beside her bed, and the guy came out and asked her to wear some clothes. They brought her to Mr. Jane. She was asking Mr. Jane, what happened to my stomach? And there was a guy that was explaining that there is something in you and you have to travel, just do what they ask you. What you do? She just realized she was surrounded with bunch of guys, and then the guy said bon voyage. She woke up somewhere and she was asking herself in the black. She says she has a safe time and be strong. She looked around with men and she was chained, and those men had tattoos around, and the man started beating her really hard on her stomach where she was bleeding, and she realized that the bleeding was getting worse. She put her hand on to touch it and something was happening with the blue bag. The blowback opened in her stomach and there was all this funny stuff that was happening to her eyes, to her body. She was kicking the wall, climbing on the wall around without realizing the gravity off the earth, no respecting it. She was shaking all over the place. She realized that she felt different and she had some sort of superpower on her. The way she thanked, the way she looks, the way she moves, everything was different. And the men walked in the cell, closing the door behind her, the men showing the gun, coming in front of her and trying to touch her, and Lucy aggressively beat him and had a gun and came out in the cell. Lucy came out and sharing everyone and eating the food and drinking water, realized that she was shot and she took the bullet with her hands, put it on the glass, and she was looking for the gun, putting all the guns on her bags to go after the bad guy, which is Mr. Jane. Lucy came out and took the taxi to go meet Mr. Jane. On the taxi she realized that she has his superpower to hear all the communication around her. Lucy walked in the hospital and asking the doctor that he needs help, and he pointed the gun to the patient that was in the surgery and finishes life, and pointed the gun to the doctor telling him to help her doing the surgery on her. Lucy talked the phone after doctor and called her mom and asking her how she was doing and telling her that she loves her for everything she did for her, and telling her how she was feeling. She has no emotion, she cannot feel gravity, she can't feel her blood moving, she can feel her brain share, remember everything when she was very young. Tell her mom on the phone the doctor did the surgery and she was asking how much is left. The doctor said 500 grams. She was asking the doctor, what is this blue substance? The doctor say it's some sort of pregnancy stuff on stage 4, but the doctor said I'm still surprised that you are still alive, and Lucy said I know it's not for too long. Lucy came out of the hospital looking around, her eyes can see frequency going down the tree, going up, and she went to the building where Mr. Jane was having tattoos. She busted in the door and came inside and stopping the life of all the bodyguards that was protecting Mr. Jane. Mr. Jane was sitting with his eyes closed and listening to soft music. Lucy sat down and looked on Mr. Jane, and she took out the knife and put it on his hands and telling him that I know you are confused because something's happening but you cannot react. Lucy put both fingers on Mr. Jane's brain and show was having access to all the details, the memories that he had on her and all the people that he put at the blue bags on them. And where do we going? All the cities. One was going to Rome, Paris, and she said thank you for sharing. Mr. Jane was very angry about it. Lucy went to an apartment using the computer to have found that she knew her and calling Mr. Professor Norman on the phone, telling her everything that was happening to her brain to the capacity that was not normal. Professor Norman was listening on everything she was saying on the phone and watching her appearing on TV. She was also saying she can't control other people's body, controlling my thematic and frequencies, and she says She has all this knowledge exploding to her brain, she doesn't know what to do with it. Professor Norman advised her to use it, to leave, to bring it to another life, to extend it to another life, to pass it on, because there is no other higher purpose. Actually saying something about time, and she said she will meet him in 12 hours. When she finished, she printed out something telling her friend that her kidney is not functioning properly and she won't die, but she needs to go to the hospital. Bringing the paper that she painted, she was trying to give him all the instruction and details, and there were about 3 people. She told him to be careful when removing the bags, the chemical was very strong. She said she caught him on, and the man hung up the phone and he went to the airport to Berlin, Germany. The first guy was cut, the second guy was in Paris, France, he was cut too. Call Nicole. The third guy was in Rome, Italy, he was caught too. Finally they had all 3 people. That's the blue bag was planted in there stomach. Lucy now wears on the airplane, and she was feeling weird, and she knew what was happening to all people around her. When she finished typing on the computer, they offer her a drink. No, they called me. Call was going inside of her 40% and everything was falling around. She realized that her tooth came out and disappearing, and she was vanishing also, and the man beside her, well, that's what was happening, and the people was looking around, and she was trying to go and hide in the bathroom, pushing all the people around her. Lucy was trying to take all the substance, nauseous, vanishing with the lightning, and Lucy woke up and looking around, and someone's telling the doctor, and Lucy asking the French guy if he got the package and where are they? The French guy said here in Paris. Then the 2 came out in hospital in front of the car. Lucy realized that she can see frequency from communication all over Paris and around her car. She told the French guy to drive, and the French guy said okay. Says he was afraid of her in the hospital with the 3 people that had a blue bag that was arrested in hospital. They were trying to do surgery on them so they can take the blue bag out. Lucy will driving to reach the hospital so fast because the guy from Mr. Jane's bodyguard, they're already taking people's life out, so they can't take those 3 people that had the blue bag on their stomach. Lucy got to the hospital and the bodyguard was in front of them. She asked them to give them the case. Now the comical was 60% on her body. She could control the magnetic and people's emotion. When she took the bag, she asked the French guy to come with her and kissed him. When they came out of the car, Mr. Jane was outside and following them at the same time. She called Professor Norman to meet with him. Mr. Norman finally meet with Lucy and introduce her to his colleagues. Lucy was talking to them and showing them how she can change a different form. At the same time, Mr. Jane came with his bodyguard to attack Lucy in the meeting with the Professor Norman and his colleagues, showing them how she can manipulate gravity and all orders substance. She even showed them a vision of a car driving by, or the speed time. She said time is all we have. With our time there is no life, with a demonstration to show them on the display. So she asked Mr. Norman to put all these bags, and Mr. Norman said, are you sure you need all these bags? Professor Norman said, I don't think so. This is a good idea. We'll bring all mankind's disaster. Lucy was injected and her body was feeling all this weird stuff. The chemical, the stop sense, went inside of her, and there is a large lightning coming out of her mouth everywhere. Now Lucy was transforming herself to a big energy, creating all this black stop signs around her. Professor Norman and his colleague, who is afraid at the same time. Mr. Jane wears trying to get inside of the room to kill Lucy. Now Lucy was at 80% and everything was changing around her, and Professor Norman, his colleague, could see all these black stuff coming like a generation computer. 90% on her body. Stop says keep working on Lucy. Now Lucy had a control of controlling the computer system and go inside of time in the beginning, and now she found herself in Times Square. Going back, she went back even before when the men was men, all the way back. Now Lucy was about 90% and Mr. Jane wanted to finish her, but it was too late. At that time Lucy was already 100% and vanished. The French guy finished Mr. Jane's life. Then something came out of the computer like a black USB. Professor Norman took it and the French guy asked, where are you, Lucy? And Lucy said, I'm everywhere. The movie ends there. If you like this video, watching next video, I promise you're gonna like it. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you to the next video.